Hey everyone, it's Zohran. Today we have Jonathan Bailey, an employee at Amazon's DBK1 facility, which is located right here on the edge of our district. So, Jonathan, can you speak about the situation at hand and the early organizing that workers did to pressure management and what those demands were?
Yeah. So early on, before even there was all this madness with the virus, um, we kind of like came together around a few demands. Some of us noticed that Amazon was denying us our right to safe and sick leave under New York City law. Um, and as well as we noticed that Amazon wasn't following some of its policies that it's already like stated that it was committed to like following through with, such as paid time off,
Mhm.
and also having like a an appeals process. So like when instance people are like fired when they really shouldn't have been, like actually having a way in which to like to appeals to like get that like reversed, right? um and this is like that came well, and then also like just like a raise because like obviously um and that kind of came into play a lot because a lot of folks a lot of folks that were like sick and should have like had access to safe and sick leave, a lot of folks ended up being like given points, which is kind of the way that our attendance system works, and eventually were fired because of their absences. Um,
Can you explain a little bit about what points are?
yeah. So essentially, you can accrue a certain amount of points from being gone, or like being late, and basically you're basically we're fired by an algorithm. After so many days that like we haven't been able, like we're unable to come to work, or like that folks are late, then like they're terminated automatically. So basically, you don't like a lot of folks like it's not even like a you're requesting time off. It's just like a if you can't come, then you're just going to get like points. That's how it works at Amazon warehouses.
So you found that in this warehouse, even prior to Corona, that there were kind of a set of laws that were on the books that Amazon was not abiding by.
Exactly.
Is that the situation in which you began organizing?
Yeah. So like excuse me, a lot of our like early like efforts were coming out of like seeing like this uh this disparity that like Amazon wasn't following um the New York safe and sick leave laws. So like it kind of like really came to play also like Amazon not following its own policies regarding appeals, because people are getting fired that shouldn't be, right? And so like we started off with a petition that was just around some of these demands. Um, and we were able to get the vast majority, almost everybody through the most important like shifts. The night shift is like when the bulk of the work is done. Uh, but like actually the vast majority of the warehouse signed on to the petition. So that was kind of like our first real like push to like get people, coordinating together to try to get some changes.
And when was that?
Oh, let's see. I can't remember when we like delivered the petition. We actually delivered it three different times.
In terms of like a general period of time, was this towards the end of last year or early this year?
Well, yeah, that was early this year. Like we were delivering the petition in March.
Okay.
So I think that we actually started it like kind of at the beginning. We kind of had a longer process of like putting it together. There was a good sized group of us that actually made the petition and created the demands. I feel
And
like I should have grabbed some water. I feel like
do you want to go? You want to go grab some? It's totally fine.
wait, can I? Okay,
Yeah, go
give
grab
me
some.
1 second. I knew that'd be going on. So
It's totally good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I also wanted to. Okay, so let's see, where were we? Okay, so that was in early March that you handed over petitions, and you'd been organizing for a few months, and now since that time, obviously our world has very much changed, and yet your work has continued. And so I wanted to ask, can you talk a little bit about how the COVID-19 outbreak has impacted workers at this facility?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, like the reason why we were able to so we're pretty sure, first of all, that our facility isn't actually the first facility to have a case of coronavirus. We think that we were just organized enough that we were able to catch it. Um, because how this like ended up kind of going down was that management tried to stay quiet about like the case of the virus, right? They they knew that there was a case of the virus, but they tried to not follow CDC regulations and just tried to keep the warehouse open. Like basically they tried to like shut down for 3 hours and like run over some things with a Lysol wipe or something, and then basically just have everybody work their regular shift. But we were, yeah, yeah, I know. Um, but we were networked strongly enough that we were able to like get the message out to everyone that there was a case of the virus. um, and then a couple of us went to the warehouse, and I posted up outside. One of the other members of Amazonians United ran into the warehouse, told everybody, like brought them all out, and that's like where we like first confronted like management on the issue. So like it's been, there's like a lot more like just need for us to be like actually strongly networked. Like it's important. All that's really happened is that there's like a greater need for us to have like the social cohesion in place to be able to deal with these issues as they come. Um, and for us, like, and this was a little bit before, and before like we actually found out of the case of the virus at our warehouse. Like we kind of realized and ended up kind of having these overlapping campaigns. So we had our like petition for like our warehouse going, but then like um all of it was really like obvious that we needed to do something about like issues around the virus. And because there still isn't like any real like body that like to lead Amazon workers in like engaging in these kind of conflicts with management, we like realized, okay, we should try to make like a large demand, and like have it be something that's like really targeting everybody at the very least in the US, right? So we had like this workers petition around issues with the virus specifically, and made out a national call. And it ended up being, so far, I think, over 5,000 Amazon workers have signed the petition, and it's been like translated into like 3 different languages. Um, so like it's been like really useful in trying to see like, okay, so like how and where are people like along these lines, like thinking in these terms, and kind of coordinating together to like you know to like actually see their sentiment be realized.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's kind of been like overlapping with a lot of this stuff. We actually ended up having, there was an article in that Washington Post wrote about our petition, and it was like the next day uh that we found out about the case in our warehouse. And so that really like ended up pushing things out there, which like was a big factor in like folks like Bernie Sanders and Alexandria jumping on to like kind of help push like a recognition of the fight that we're engaged in, and as well as supporting in various ways.
And so, in terms of the demands that you've put forward, both the demands that you had prior to the coronavirus pandemic, as well as the demands that you've made since the outbreak of the pandemic, and the contraction of the infection at the warehouse. Has management responded to any of these? Have they conceded to any of the demands? Have they? How have they
Yeah.
generally responded to your organizing?
Yeah. So actually, we've won a lot, like so much, way more than just we've won a ton. Um, and it's happened so quickly that it's it's actually I think kind of hard for people to recognize how much we've won. So we won, our sick leave, like safe and sick leave under New York City. Um, we like won that right away. Like this happened like actually still while we were collecting signatures. Like they found out about like what was going on. They responded very quickly to try to diffuse the situation, and that's kind of what Amazon does. It acts quickly to diffuse like any kind of sentiment that's being built. They're actually quite good at that, to try to like disrupt like workers from like organizing or engaging in any kind of way that like leads to like any kind of expressions of power, right? um so like we won that real quick, which is like a big deal because that is like that's probably like an additional $100,000 of value in the pockets of like the warehouse workers, across like the warehouse. So it is like a big win. But then we recently won paid time off as well. Which so like I mean we've won a lot really really quickly. But there's like a lot of things that like haven't really been responded to. So like they're still trying to like keep us from finding out about new cases of the virus in the warehouse. They're kind of doing as much as they can to hide that. They're not like they're not actually like following SB 8091, which recently like was passed on the 18th of last month. That gives workers in places of business with more than 100 employees, gives them like a legal right to up to 2 weeks of paid sick leave regarding issues around the virus. They're not really following that. And they're like instead of like giving workers paid time and a half for hazard pay, they've given people double time for overtime, kind of as a way to like discourage people from like engaging in any kind of actions, right? So if like people have to be there a certain amount of time in order to take advantage of that, it really discourages people who like really need the money from engaging in any kind of action. So they've made some pretty smart moves, to disrupt organizing.
And what are your outstanding demands at this point?
Yeah. Time and a half for hazard pay. And this is like the petition that like over 5,000 Amazon employees have like signed on.
The petition that you created after the coronavirus pandemic. So.
Yeah, like specifically our coronavirus petition demands. So there's paid time and a half as one of the demands. Um, Access to like paid time off, like or paid sick time. And like it as of right now, Amazon still requires people to like have tested positive with the virus, which is impossible because no one can get tests. Yeah. So what it ends up doing is it creates a situation where people, even if they suspect that they might be sick, they have to come to work, because they can't get access to the paid sick time. So they actually have to come to work in order to make money. So like we've asked that be shifted to under people's own discretion. That especially for like folks who are within that ask at an increased amount of risk, for some of like the older workers or immunocompromised workers, that's like particularly important. That still hasn't actually been responded to by the company. We have an ask regarding, there's a lot of folks who like their kids aren't in school, and so it's like affected, people's like their at home lives because of that. They have like their kids that they got to take care of, and this we see this immediately in like who's still at the warehouse, right? So like the vast majority of the women are gone, like yeah, it's like a very clear like, oh yeah, this is like a social reproduction demand, and like to the extent that we ignore it, we actually are like disenfranchising like the women in the warehouse, and so like we've made that a demand for Amazon to meet, um, as well as I know that there's one other that I feel like I'm missing. Um, uh, Social reproduction, time and a half, being able to get access. We've also like asked in the circumstance of like that there is like an outbreak, that the warehouse closes for like up to 2 weeks, because like in the circumstance of our warehouse, like they did a really shoddy job at cleaning the warehouse. They didn't follow CDC guidelines, and then we had like an outbreak. We know that at least as of right now, at least there's like at least 5 confirmed cases. Yeah, and like that's a consequence of them not following CDC guidelines.
And so, just a couple final questions for you. How many people work at the warehouse right now?
Um, so I'm actually not certain the total, because like Amazon's also kind of gone into like a hiring spree just recently, in trying to like they're trying to manage the fact that there's so many folks who aren't coming to work now, because of like they're wanting to keep themselves safe and their families safe. Um, and the fact that like everybody is like trying to buy their stuff through Amazon because no one wants to go out. So I'm not certain of the numbers right now, but we're probably around 250 at our warehouse in Queens. There's one Amazon warehouse in Queens, and I think out of us who at least are doing like the basic like labor, that like everything from like unloading stuff from the trucks to like sorting everything and like preparing it to be like shipped out to everybody. I think there's about 250 of us.
And can you tell people what is the address of this warehouse?
Um, One Belova Ave. I can't remember exactly. It's actually in Woodside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not too far. It's within this district.
Yep.
Within our district, and I think a lot of people do not know that both where the warehouse is, how close to home this is, and the fact
Yeah.
that it is our community. And
Yeah.
and I mean, I myself didn't know that there were 5 confirmed cases at the warehouse.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, the final question I wanted to ask you is, do you believe? Well, actually, 2 more.
I just realized something. I'm sorry, totally to interrupt you. The other one, and I'm like realizing it's ridiculous how I forgot. But also like no more rate-based write-ups, right? So like one of the issues in the warehouse is that like if anybody like coughs or sneezes, like yeah, they need to like go like wash their hands, like that's like an absolute must, for instance. And just like it's like important to be like practicing like certain sanitation like requirements, yeah, like but because of like the requirements around rate, if people like take the time, like if they even take that time, like they jeopardize their ability to like hit the numbers required. And so like that can like endanger their job. They can be like written up if they don't like hit that rate. And so that was like another one of our demands. And we won that in our warehouse. But Amazon has not applied that in other warehouses, which has been very interesting to see. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
That's a very important thing to say, because I think that, making it very clear to people that the business structure of this company is one that does not incentivize health and safety in
Yeah.
your practices, right? It
Yeah.
incentivizes behavior that will likely spread the virus.
Yeah.
I think that was what I wanted to speak to you a little bit about, is about the present working conditions. But you've made it very clear as to how they kind of allow for COVID-19 cases to increase because of company policies,
Yeah.
lack of social distancing, and time to take care of one's personal hygiene. The final question I have for you, Jonathan, is what policies should New York State enact to assist the organizers such as yourself and Amazon workers such as yourself who are fighting for dignity in this warehouse?
Well, one of the things that we're like actually kind of interested to see is that, the way that some of these companies are dealing with this situation is by just not telling people what's going on, right? So like just not notif like it seems like like a basic amount of human decency to like let people know, oh yeah, there was like an issue with the virus here. By the way, we're certain that the virus is present here in this workplace, like literally right now. Like that, it seems like very clear, like that's what you do. But Amazon is like demonstrating that it's not into that, that it would totally rather just keep that secret. So one thing actually might be that like businesses being like required to like notify people so that they can like take action to ensure their safety and the safety of their families. For instance, I have a coworker who like did so much to try to make sure that they were that that they weren't catching the virus and that they weren't spreading it. But they have family who like a parent that's like older and like immunocompromised, and they're like, because of like Amazon not being like clear about things going on, like this person ended up like catching it in the warehouse, and like their parent is in like critical condition now, and so it's like Amazon not being clear and transparent about this stuff, like it keeps people from being able to make informed decisions to keep their families safe. And like that, like that's so deeply, so like it's just so clearly terrible to do to people, like so like that would be one thing that I think would be useful to people in just trying to figure out how to just
Navigate
like
this moment and make the best choices for themselves and their families. Absolutely.
yeah.
And it's so horrible that it even needs to be said, but it's clearly a thing that requires the state to push private corporations and companies to do, because without that state coercion and state power, then it's very clear what happens, which is that workers are not told at all, and the consequences can even be fatal.
Yeah.
Jonathan, I just wanted to thank you so much for taking the time to let everyone know about the fight that is going on right here in our neighborhood, in our district, at the Amazon warehouse, and let people know the organizing that you're doing. And we will be sharing links so that people can have an easy way and an understanding of how to support your efforts. Thank you so much.
Things are on.